The second season of the newest addition to the Sheldonverse has been greenlit. This is the setup from the first season finale. Sheldon Cooper's family tree is growing throughout CBS, with Georgie and Mandy's first marriage. The first season of the sitcom, which takes place in 1990s and is a spin-off of Young Sheldon, which is a spin-off of The Big Bang Theory, follows Georgie, Sheldon's elder brother, as he moves to Medford, Texas. Montana Jordan plays this role. Mandy, the 31-year-old woman he had an affair with on Young Sheldon, helped the 19-year-old develop a job and raise his daughter, Cece. The first season of the comedy followed the pair as they became financially independent and grew closer, though Mandy aspires to be a weather reporter. Georgie works as a waitress and is employed at his father-in-law Jim's car shop, but their relationship is still on the rocks, and they have their share of problems with Jim's and Mandy's in-laws, particularly Mary and Audrey. In the first season finale, Georgie intends to one day take over Jim's car shop, but Jim is considering selling it, forcing Georgie to take matters into his own hands. Meanwhile, Mandy managed to secure a full-time job at a TV station, but the good news is that her supervisor happens to be her ex-boyfriend, still married. Yes, as the first season comes to a close, Georgie and Mandy's marriage remains intact. One thing about prequels is that viewers usually already know how the character stories end. As a result, the trip, rather than the destination, takes center stage in the story. Not only that, but the title of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage makes it clear that it is no different. The Big Bang Theory viewers are all aware that Georgie and Mandy will get a divorce at some point, but when, how, and why is still a mystery. The title is a little mysterious. The audience is left to ponder whether this marks their initial union or if there's a possibility of a second marriage. She asked if they would be married to each other again. There are a lot of questions that are asked when you look at that title. Sell the auto shop. The car shop is indeed sold by Jim. The greasy auto parts magnate and Audrey's ex-boyfriend, Fred Fagenbarker, is the one who first approaches him with a proposal. Jim's plan to sell is a significant theme in the latter episodes. After discussing the possibility of taking over the shop upon Jim's retirement, Georgie is understandably enraged by the concept. "It was meant for me to own that land eventually," he told Mandy. "It was going to be our future." Jim feels bad about Georgie's future, but wants the sale to go through so he and Audrey can take a trip and help pay for Cece's college. Georgie demands 48 hours to match the offering. After informing the family of his intention to sell to Fagenbarker, Jim agrees, but his doubts cause Fagenbarker to delay the sale. At the local bank, Georgie tries to convince a loan officer, but he is rejected. Even his mom is taken aback by the sum when he contacts her. Mary steps in as a savior, offering up her house as collateral. Though Georgie claims, "I could never risk your house," Mary continues to have faith in him. "Honey, your whole life, I was all focused on your brother and sister," she points out. "It's your turn." He gets the loan after visiting his dad's grave to have a heart-to-heart. Regrettably, Fagenbarker's offer is somewhat higher than his own. Luckily, Ruben, an employee at the car shop, comes in and agrees to put up the remaining amount. Although they may not be friends, Georgie and Ruben have agreed to work together in business. Jim gives his approval following a flash from his gun. They currently own the company. Indeed, and she excels in this area. Mandy was hired full-time as the very early morning weather reporter after stepping in at a local station when her predecessor left for another job. After wowing her colleagues with line dances and comedic parts in her reports, she begins to receive fan mail. Because of this, she is able to advance to the position of evening reporter. "So, I would be the one to do the weather for the people who are actually awake?" she asks, bewildered. Another perk of the higher-profile employment is the pay rise. The catch? Scott, a charming and well-educated man her own age, is her new boss. That Mandy is from an affluent family is something Audrey often brings up. "I was so sad when he dumped you," her mother cruelly says. At this time, Scott is aware that Mandy is married and that he is engaged as well. However, their relationships are fraught with tension, and she presumably feels old emotions resurface in her embrace with him upon hearing of her promotion. Afraid that Georgie would be furious and tell her to leave the station, She puts it off for much too long before answering. In the first few moments of the last episode of Season 1, the unfortunate truth is revealed. "So long as he is in his position," says Georgie, "you're picking him over me?" When he threatens to leave his mother, she urges him to keep their child in mind and takes him to visit her. Mandy is consoled by Audrey, who is also busy. "You can't allow George's lack of maturity to control your aspirations and ambitions," the speaker continues, before claiming that George's wrath stems more from him being insecure than from her mother. The reality that they can't make ends meet without Mandy's income finally hits Georgie. Their daughter is dependent on him, and he took on substantial debt to purchase the automobile repair business. "I guess we just have to trust each other," he points out. "Seems that way," she responds. Nervousness and anticipation fill the air as Season 1 of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage comes to a close. Their age difference, fears, and financial difficulties are causing them to take risks and advance in their jobs. But it isn't easy. In their final conversation, the loving pair says to one another, "You piss me off." But in the last shot, we see Georgie and Ruben at the wheel of the car store for the very first time. Phage and Batcher shows up just as they're getting their bearings as business partners and co-owners, with the intention of forcing them to close their doors. "This isn't a paddling pool, my child," he cautions. "Georgie, you're swimming in the deep end now." Even though Georgie claims he isn't terrified, he concludes the episode by hurriedly going to the restroom to throw up. Season 2, a lot on its plate. Season 2 will have a lot on its plate after the Season 1 conclusion drops a bombshell. Defeating Phage and Barker, keeping their firm solvent, and paying off their debt all need Georgie and Ruben to learn how to work together because his mother's house is at stake. This is of utmost importance to Georgie. In the meantime, Mandy's new position will force her to work side by side with her ex, with whom she maintains at least some sexual tension. His retirement will also bring about changes in Jim and Audrey's lives. In the series finale, he tells her in an inebriated state that he plans to spend a lot more time at the house from now on, which might be fantastic or bad for their marriage.